Welcome home, all. It is the 16th of April on a Thursday. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving us your time, your listen, and go into the go into the Friday Saturday. And like as I've been saying for quite a while now, over these last few months, into the back end of this last year when we started up again with Supermax Nation, pay attention on the Fridays. That is the news day that people sneak things through or in and drop information because they know that regular Americans, audiences, listeners, viewers are not as in tune or not paying as much attention going into a weekend. Because as I've said before, and I think you guys will uniformly agree, most people, regular people, have lives, they have kids, they have families, they have wives, husbands, daughters, mothers, fathers, and you've got life to live. And so you get to the end of your week and you don't want to be reading about some garbage going into the weekend. You've got plans, and again, I think I've said before, like my plans were always about where I had to be for which wrestling tournament, what time weigh-ins were at 6 a.m, or for my daughter, a swim meet, track meet, a water polo competition tournament. There was always something, on our weekends. And that was quite literally because my kids pretty much participated in sports year round, not just the calendar school year, but summers were even busier than that. My point is that through the weekends, most parents, if you got kids, if you don't, then so be it. But you probably have plans anyway with friends, family, loved ones. But going into the weekend, the busy schedule, it's busy as all hell. And you don't want to be reading about, ugly news stuff, heavy, material going into a weekend. And that's normally the time that politically you drop information because you need to get it out, but you don't want people to really notice it. And you want the news cycle to move beyond it. So it wasn't a coincidence that when they did finally release or finally put out something on the Epstein files back in December, they did it on a Friday. And if you remember, if those of you that were with me, I said it on the Thursday, pay attention till tomorrow, because let's see what we get. And they dropped it on Friday going into a weekend. So they can say they did it. They can say they were transparent. They can say they met their obligation of releasing, by congressional order, by the way, a law. And they could say they did it without really wanting to have to do it or really doing it seriously. And for the record, you guys are adults. You should know that. Just because they're doing it doesn't mean they're doing it to full capability optimally, meaning they're doing it so that the maximum amount of people see it, read it, know it. They don't want that, because if more people are engaged, more people know, then it makes it harder for them to get away with as much. Okay, so again, as always, Thursday going into the weekend, pay attention to tomorrow. So a quick follow-up to Thursday, or excuse me, Tuesday, for today's Thursday. I did, I apologize because I didn't go back and check Tuesday's video. I didn't go back over it. Normally I'll go back over it, listen to it once at least, and then try to follow up or get to any comments that are in the comments section for that video on that day. I did not do that. I apologize. I'm going to do that through the weekend. So I don't know if someone commented or said something, although I did get one person that told me directly they knew which song I was going to play before I played it. He's a friend of mine, so he kind of knows me a little bit. That's a cheat. But the song was Fortunate Son by CCR. And I think I may have said this on the Tuesday that my dad's favorite group, rock side anyway, at least. He listened to a lot of different types of music, but love CCR, love Creedence Clearwater Revival. And in particular, that song, as I heard that growing up, from him, The Fortunate Son. And he would tell me about, we'd laugh and joke about the lyrics, right? I know Senator's son. In this case, President's son, because the president's son doesn't have to go to war. He gets to kick back and sit while his dad sends other people's kids to war. And that was my point to it. So the follow-up here is that I think I'm going to do it tonight, a little later tonight into tomorrow when I get home for you guys over the weekend. If you get to it, please do. But I'm going to release my playlist for what I have termed American Supermax. Now, as I shared with a friend, when I say Supermax, it doesn't mean me personally. Okay. It doesn't have to mean an individual. When I talk about Supermax, I talk about a concept and a philosophy or a belief system, a way of doing things right, a way of being, a way of conducting yourself, a way of acting, a way of exhibiting, good behavior, positive behavior. It isn't necessarily an individual. Again, it's a concept, it's a thought, it's a belief, it's a process. So American Supermax to me in this playlist, and I'm spending a few minutes on here to begin the show because it's important to me. And it's important to me in the sense as an educator that one, and I may have said this to my producer too, like if you go through the list of music of the songs that are on this playlist, you're going to know a lot of them. You should, if you're well informed musically that way. And most people on YouTube are, by the way. I mean, YouTube started pretty much as, a music thing. Right now it's a whole bunch of other too. I'm not saying bad or good, but if you know music, you're going to know a lot of these songs. But I'm going to guess that there will be some songs that maybe you haven't heard or maybe you don't know as well. Okay? That I took time to, in a way, curate this list so that I didn't put together a list that's just, okay, let me get one of each of everything, right? And let's put it on the ark and send it off for good music into space. It is, though, a list that is diverse that way. You will find immediately that there are more than a few, probably a larger percentage that are from the 60s and 70s because of that window, that era, Vietnam, and where we really got music as protest and anti-war. Because let's do the quick history lesson. Up into the 50s, you primarily had the big band era prior to that, out of World War II and before. Okay, that is what you had for music. It wasn't about some single rock star or rock group. That came later. So music wasn't the medium and the distributor of information and the distributor of culture the same way that it was from specifically the late 50s into the 60s and now today. Music is a thread in a vein of the culture, quite literally a pulse of the culture. It wasn't like that prior, pretty much. And I don't want to say the rock or the rock and roll era. I don't want to say that. It coincides though. But again, before World War II, there wasn't a super group or a super rock star that talked about culture and talked about what's going on in the world, what's going on in our country. We didn't have that. So this phenomena of music as the arbiter, distributor, incubator of culture in America is relatively new in terms of the country. We're almost 250 years old, but we're talking about really just since the 50s, roughly. Okay, so 70 plus years. That's it. Okay, so anyway, so my point to this is those 60s and into 70s, that is really the first time where musicians and musicianship and musicality spoke to and used music as a medium to express their view or their belief in what is or what was the country at that time and whether what they were doing was right or wrong. Okay, that's it. You didn't have this medium. You didn't have this megaphone, this radio, this television, the same way you do today, and even the same way you did back in the 60s and 70s. So a lot of this flowering, and I will say it, this flowering of intellectual, artistic creativity that came out of the 60s and 70s in the form of anti-war and protest anthems and songs is a singularly unique window in our nation's history in this period, because you never had that prior to that window, prior to that time. And so if you want, I mean, almost uniformly, if you want to say, I'm an artist and I want to say something about what's wrong with this country, I want to write a protest song. I don't agree with the traitor Donald Trump sending sons and daughters of this country into a war because he's afraid of what's in the Epstein files. I want to write a song about that. I want to protest the war. You almost have to begin and end, because in many ways, the 60s era out of the Vietnam window and out of the Vietnam period in music is the alpha and the omega. In many ways, it is the beginning and the end, the alpha and the omega of what music is when it comes to protesting evil or bad in government and fighting against war because it's wrong. And I don't mean wrong just generally, but I mean wrong in particularly with this war in particular. Okay, for sure. So you have to start and begin there. So a lot of, and I'm going to digress in a second here, but it is a window. I want my audience to know that this is unique. So more than a few songs on my playlist, in my American Supermix playlist, are from the 60s and the 70s. More than a few. Probably, I don't want to say the majority, but a good percentage of them are. The largest percentage, let's put it that way. And some good ones. And I did do as much as I can to not use more than one song from any one particular artist, even though some artists are well known for their anti-government, position and lyric. They're well known for that. And there are artists that are definitely known for being anti-war in general. If not, again, this joke of a war, this stupid war, started by a president that is illegal and unconstitutional. All right, all done. So I'm going to share that. Listen, if you can tell, a lot of time and a lot of thought on my end was put into this list. It's not perfect. It's not the greatest. It's just quite literally a microcosmic look at what I'm thinking right now with regard to where we are as a country. I am anti-government right now in a lot of ways. I've always been a little bit anti-government. I alluded to this in the prior show, that it's healthy as an American to be a little anti-government. We quite literally started a revolution because we were anti-government. And I've spoken eloquently and adequately about why we started this country and the rationale behind it that we should still be a part of. So yeah, I'm a little anti-government. And even though I'm a veteran and an infantry veteran on top of that, and my family has served in wars for a long, long time, for generations. My son served in Iraq. Both of my grandfathers served in World War II. I served during the First Persian Gulf War. My family on both sides, Martinez and Ortiz, have been in and around war literally, our entire existence in this country in many ways. So I'm not anti-war per se. If someone attacks us a la Pearl Harbor, then it's time to get it on. You're going to pay a price for what you did to us. Okay, so I'm not anti-war. I'm not that guy. I wish I could be that guy, but I'm not. Sorry, I just can't be. So I'm not anti-war. But I am anti-stupid war. I am anti-no need to send kids to die for no reason war. I'm that guy, for sure. All right, so make sure I'm clear, because dumbasses out there are going to think, because I've seen this already, that, I'm a veteran, I should be for any war that any president pulls. Bullshit. Called openly on a mic right now. Because I'm a veteran, I'm a little more cautious and a little bit extra cautionary when it comes to presidents starting wars. Because I did serve. And I have had family for generations that have served. So I know how important it is. There's a seriousness and an urgency to the wish to see people die, the want to see people die, the carelessness of seeing young people die for stupid shit. Okay? So I'm not necessarily uniformly anti-war, but I am anti-stupid war. Let's put a pin on that. I am anti-stupid war. As a veteran, and in particular as a Mexican-American veteran who understands that a good, healthy percentage of Mexican America serves this country in combat arms, in combat capacity, meaning they're likely to die more than others. That's why I'm a little more cautious, a little extra. So American Super Mechs, I'll put that playlist out tonight. I'm hoping some of you watch it, listen to it, because it's YouTube also, it's videos, but it's music. Listen to it. And so the song I played the other day again was Creedence Clearwater Revival, Fortunate Son. I don't, it's not a right or wrong thing, but I do believe it is like the quintessentially anti-war protest song. I really do. I really do. Because it talks about the people in power, and it talks about those that will send your sons and daughters, but not send their own to die. There is nothing more important to me than that. Sending an American to die, sending American kids to die. That is as important as it gets with power and authority and position. And so CCR's all-time classic, still, watch this, still relevant today and meaningful, and not just in the music. The music's still great, by the way. Even if you took the lyrics on, just listen to the music. Just awesome, right? Awesome sound. But the lyrics are still potent today. What is it? 40, 30, 50 plus, maybe close to 50 something years after that song was first put out. Half a century later, it's still relevant, still important. So that's what my leadoff is. And I'll stop here, but I want you to go and I want you to listen. I'm asking you to listen, just to listen to good music. Nothing wrong with that, right? Listen to good music. And as you listen to this particular playlist, if you listen to all of it, you're going to get a cross-section, a wide array and wide range of types of music. There is rock. There's a little bit of country. There's some rap. There's alternative. There's a lot in range. And by ages, by the way. I did include one song that I was doing my work, doing my research. There's one song, it's a country song that's only a few months ago. So songs from the 60s up until now. All right. And if you listen to the entire playlist, and let's not get too little crazy here, but if you listen to the entire playlist, you'll know and you'll understand where my mind is right now with regard to where we are as a country right now. And I'll leave it there. Comment freely as you wish, either here on this particular show or on the playlist, by the way. So I'll share the link to the playlist. And I don't do this enough or often, but again, my YouTube channel, which is the medium we're watching now, listen to the playlist and then subscribe, because I've got more playlists that I'm going to put out that it's just music. It's not political talk. It's not hard issues. It's just good music that I'm going to put out. And I'm going to do other things in addition to bolster and foster music through this medium on YouTube for my channel, Super Mex International. Okay. Let's get down to business. And, not so much tongue in cheek. And I was just thinking of this on the way over today. What I don't want to do, or what I didn't want to do, was take a look at, what is the topic or the current today and over the last few days in this week, and dismiss or minimize importance and the seriousness of things. But yeah, this thing with Donald Trump and JD Vance basically taking shots at and calling out, the Pope Leo. And it's like everything that Trump does, right? He makes you pick a side. He makes you decide that you're with him or you're against him. And when you really consider this, we're talking about the Pope of the Catholic Church, in excess of 1 billion followers, one of the largest religions, one of the largest faith organizations and thoughts on the planet and in history. And Donald Trump and JD Vance are making you, and they're making you pick a side, because you have to be with him or against him. Everything is that way with this guy. You're with him or against him. I'm still laughing, and I don't want to get too far on this, but I'm still laughing and joking a little bit about and not in a bad way, but the Colin Kaepernick thing, the young brother that was the quarterback for the 49ers. And they skewered and flayed him, and they made people hate him. When other people have done far worse, but they made people hate that kid. And I won't go into all the story and the detail about it, but it was not an evil thing. He didn't believe in something, and he chose to, in his way, protest in his way. He didn't violently protest. He didn't hurt anybody else. He chose to make a statement in a nonviolent, peaceful way. And the MAGA cult, stirred up and stoked by fearless leader, fat wannabe Jesus now, flayed that kid and basically moved him out of professional sports in many ways. Other teams wouldn't pick him up. They were afraid to. And my point is, Donald Trump made people take a side. And it harmed others. I don't mean just Colin Kaepernick, obviously. But let's be straight there. He's a black kid, big afro, right? And they made it racial. They made it racial. And if you don't think it was racial, you're stupid, or you're not being honest with yourself. You're being disingenuous and intellectually dishonest. Okay, let's be blunt about it. But my point is, that was sport. And he injected himself into sport, and he made you take a side. He's injected himself into music, into film and television, other aspects of our culture. And I do believe that in this case, I believe this is the lowest and the filthiest of those injections committed by Donald Trump, the traitor. I think this is the lowest. Now he's inserting himself into our religion this way, right? And we're going to say, well, he's inserted himself in. Yeah, correct. You're right. You're 100% right that he's been doing this, but not like directly taking shots at the Pope of the Catholic Church, the Pope of the Catholic faith. That's new. That's different. That's now. And why? Because he's gotten away with it so long, for so many times in other arenas and other fields, sport, art, entertainment, music, you name it. He keeps getting away with it. So what does amoeba do? It responds to stimuli. If you keep letting it get away with something, it's going to keep doing it. But I do believe this is the lowest. This is the very bottom. This is the pit. This is the very pit of filth in this person and who he is. To insert yourself and inject yourself into the religious arena and forcing Catholics and others to choose a side. Are you with Trump or are you with the Pope? So having said all that, after the initial here, I stated that I don't want to do that to where it's like he forces you to choose a side, right? But I think, it's clear. If you're watching my show, you know where I'm going to be. It's not that complicated. I don't like Donald Trump. I don't hate the guy. I just don't like what he is. I don't like who he is, and I don't like what he's doing in my country. I don't like how many people that have died because of him. And those are objective facts, not subjective, objective. Won't go into that. I've said it before, and I've named the names, produced the numbers. Donald Trump is responsible for American loss of life in ways that no president ever has been, ever. That's why I don't like the guy. The other stuff is, he's human. He's a regular person. He can do whatever the hell he wants. But he is the president. And so I don't have to like it. He put himself in the position. He ran for the office, i.e., he is responsible for and subject to criticisms and our comments and our likes or dislikes. And if you don't want that, then don't run for president. Don't be the president. So I do not like the guy for a lot of reasons. I honestly 100% believe unequivocally at this point, with all evidence on the table over the last decade, since he inserted himself in the political process and the political procedure of American the American political bloodstream in office, I do believe he's evil. And I'm not hesitating about that. Other people like, oh, you say that. I don't hesitate. I've said more than a few times, I've given my definition for what it is. You can do dictionary definition, but it is not super complicated. Someone who hurts others, someone who watches others die and doesn't give a shit when you're responsible for those other people at personal benefit, selfishly. All of that is true. And I'll have that argument with anybody, and I'll win that argument. And if you don't like that because you're a Trumper and you're in the cult, give me a call. Do it honestly, and do it without being an idiot. Let's have that discussion. We'll televise it. We'll stream it. And I'll smash you and win that argument. And if you're smart, you'll stay away from it, because if you're smart, you'll realize you're going to get smashed. Don't argue points you can't win. That's one of my rules. Okay, so I do believe he's evil. I do believe he's evil. So I'm not surprised that he's taking shots at the Pope. What I didn't expect was, numbnuts J.D. Vance inserting himself into the process. Mr. I was a Catholic 6-7 years ago, and now I'm an expert on preaching and pontificating. There isn't a more apropos moment to use the word pontificate. Yes? To pontificate and lecture the Pope on what he should be speaking about. I don't know about you, but if you're in Supermex Nation with me, if you're watching this show, I might want to think twice about lecturing a Pope, any Pope, about morality, ethical conduct, what is right and wrong. I know I would. For record, I've said before, so I am a Catholic, officially. I would say I'm not a great Catholic. I don't do church every Sunday. I'm not perfect about everything. I'm pretty good about most things. Try to stay with, 10 Commandments, that's Old Testament. But I try to live the good word, and I believe in living the good word by doing good things for other people. I am very good at that. And that's not an exaggeration. I've literally lived a life of commitment to country and community. And very few people on this planet would ever be stupid enough to question my commitment in service to country and community. That's what I believe my faith is grounded in. Doing unto others, doing the good stuff, right? So I wouldn't do that, though. I wouldn't talk about that. I wouldn't lecture a Pope on what is right and wrong and what he should be in it. And the biggest joke of it all was, in essence, and I'm not totally paraphrasing here, but J.D. Vance telling the Pope that he should stick to theology and morality. Like, idiot, that is what he's doing. And let's be clear, I'm not going to get into all of it, but I'm going to point it out. If the Pope of the Catholic faith, or any religious leader for that matter, let's say it was the Dalai or another faith that has a leader that speaks for that faith, any faith, and they come out and say that war is not good, that killing people is not good. If you're arguing the counter, then one, you're either stupid, or two, you're not stupid and you're corrupt because you're with the corruption. If you think it's okay for J.D. Vance to tell the Pope to not lecture people on how war is not good and how war is bad and killing people is bad, then you may want to consider what faith you're in. And if you're Catholic, and we're dealing with Catholic in particular right now, Catholicism specifically, if you're Catholic and you're siding with J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, you need to really second guess and question what the hell you're doing. Because if you're for death, if you're for killing people, if you're for killing women and little girls in a foreign country, civilians, then yeah, you need to question what the hell you're doing and what your faith is. Because I'm not okay with that. I can be for my country, but it doesn't mean I have to accept all the bullshit that someone's pulling in representing this country. Killing girls and women, that kind of shit I didn't sign up for when I swore an oath to the Constitution to defend my country. Not what I signed up for, not what I believe in my faith, by the way, as a Catholic. Read me a passage in the Bible that says that it is good and we ignore killing women and children. Not there. Not there. And if you got it, share it. In addition, you have Trump and Vance, and I think this one is really sticking with me in particular. And watch this. As I've said, I'm Catholic. A large, healthy, very sizable percentage of the Catholic faith worldwide, 1.4, 1.5 billion, whatever the hell it is, maybe more, an overwhelmingly large, healthy percentage of the Catholic faith is Latin. Latin, linguistic term that we've covered a bunch of times on Supermax Nation, right? So I'm using it here. All of Latin America that we know geographically, South America, Central America, a good healthy portion of Mexico, clearly, and Mexican America, we're overwhelmingly Catholic. So politically, I don't think this is smart. It clearly is not, because you've alienated a lot of Catholics and a lot of Mexicans in particular, Mexicans in America in particular, by making us choose. And I've already been told what I do have a few friends left that are kind of Trumper now, kind of. They're moving away. And one of them flat out told me that he admitted he's looked past a lot of bullshit that he didn't like. He voted for him again anyway because he didn't like the other side. I get it. Don't agree with it, but I understand what his rationale is. But he said this was the last straw. He sat there and watched. He didn't like, because I gave him shit, by the way, and I won't mention the friend's name, but I don't want to out him, but I gave him hell. And I asked him the question I ask everybody: are you okay? I said, you got a daughter? And he goes, yeah. Are you okay with the president saying he can walk up to her and grab her by the pussy? And he didn't get mad or angry with me. He just said, no, I'm not okay with that. I said, okay. And I gave him a bunch of other things like that Donald Trump has said. His own words. Do you think Nazis are fine people? Neo-Nazi, white supremacist wannabes? And he goes, no, I don't think they're fine people, but your president said that. And he told me that he's looked past all of it because he just couldn't take the other side. And I gave him the out. So you don't have to take the other side. You just don't have to take that side. And what do I mean by that? When you turn your back on Trump, some of you might even be in here that have or that want to. Unlikely. Most of my people have been anti-Trump for the beginning. But if you're turning away from this garbage, this evil excuse for a human being, even now it's not too late. And as my friend said, he took it all, watched it all, accepted it all. And then he just flat out told me, he goes, but when this guy attacks my Pope, and I love the way he said that, my Pope, because he's Catholic, his family's Catholic, all of them, going back generations, because he's a Mexican dude. His family's all Catholic, all faith. He said, when this dude, meaning the traitor Donald Trump, when this dude attacks my Pope, I'm done. And I looked him in the eye, shook his hand, gave him a little hug. I was like, good. So I'm still good. Still going to beat you up and talk to you and give you shit and make fun of you for all the crap that you stood through. I'm still going to do that. And he knows me well enough that I will do that. But I said it's never too late to turn away from evil. It's never too late. Even right down to your last dying breath. That's why you can have a dying confession on your deathbed and maybe get into heaven. If you acknowledge and repent and ask for forgiveness. And for the record, I'm not a preacher. I said I'm a rough Catholic, not a great Catholic, okay? But this is as close to as preaching as I'm going to get with you. If you could see in your life the things that you've done that are wrong, that are evil, that are bad, that have harmed others, that have hurt people, and you could acknowledge that and accept it and repent and ask for forgiveness from your higher power, your deity, your God, then there is hope for you. I believe. I do. And so this person that I'm talking about, Mexican guy, generations of Catholic faith in his family, his mom and dad, his grandparents, his kids. And he said, when you attack my Pope, I'm done with you. I'm done with this vato. This pinche vato over here attacking my Pope. And he goes, I'm done with that shit. And so I told him, it doesn't mean you have to go to the left. Doesn't mean you have to vote for a Democrat. It just means you got the spine and the backbone now to say no to this dude, to this guy, and then find something else. You don't have to, doesn't mean, it's not black and white here. Denying and finally turning against this false prophet, fat Jesus wannabe, fat Führer excuse for a president doesn't mean uniformly that you go to the other side that you feel is opposite. Watch this. Do the Supermex thing. Don't obligate yourself to any side. Choose no side. Objectively pick or choose who you vote for based on what you think is best, regardless of a side. That is about as all-American as it gets. You cannot be any more American than not accepting anybody if they're all garbage, if they're all bad, if they're all evil. That is as American as it gets. And last point here, and I'm going to move on. There was a gentleman that, and I don't know if he still watches the show or not. Maybe, maybe not. But I had conversations with him. He was on as a listener and a viewer for my radio show when I was on radio. He's still a part of Supermex Nation, my social media group. Won't share his name. He's a good dude. Not Mexican. I think he shared with me he was white and Native American, a little bit of Native American. And he's from the central part of the country, Oklahoma. And I had a conversation. We talked about this. And I'm not going to use his name, but I'm going to share a little bit of what we talked about. Anonymous. He did not want to vote for a Democrat, but he listened to the things that I said about Trump. And this was prior. This was leading up to the Biden election because he voted for him the first time. And he said it was too much. He couldn't take it anymore. This guy's too much. He's damaging us. He's hurting us. He knows he's wrong. He knows he's evil. And this is what I told him. He goes, you don't have to vote for the Democrat. He goes, well, yeah, but I'm just like, you don't have to vote for anybody. And he stopped and he said, well, yeah. And I said, no. This Constitution and this constitutional republic gives you as an American the right to vote. Understood? It gives you the right to vote. But that right is yours. And that right is yours to choose to do with what you will. And if you objectively believe that there are no good options, then do not vote. And yeah, some people will give you shit. Well, you have to vote for one or the other. No, you do not. There is nothing in the Constitution that says I have to vote for a Republican or a Democrat. There is nothing in the Constitution that says I have to vote for a Libertarian or a Green Party member. Nothing. It does not exist. Non sequitur. It does not follow. It is not there. You can vote or not vote because that is your right as an American. That is the right. Not who you vote for, but if you choose to vote at all. Now, normally people say, well, you got to vote. Well, yeah, because in general, you probably should or get involved in it. But if you don't think it's good, then just choose not to. And that is the information. That is the rationale. And that is the advice I gave my friend. And I call him a friend, even though I've never even met him in person. We've just had conversations on the phone a couple times. It's been a few years now, and I probably need to give him a buzz back because I trust him. I value his opinion. He's a solid person, and I respect his views. But he chose not to vote at all. And that was his right. So I'm sharing that with you out there today in Supermex Nation, in this world. You don't have to vote. And to the larger point, you don't have to support Donald Trump just because you think another side is so bad. I'll tell you what, why don't you be a real American? Why don't you not choose Donald Trump, turn away from that evil, and build something better if you don't see it existing already. Meaning, I'm not saying build your own party or whatever, right? I'm just saying get engaged, do things like I do at the local level, support your community, help kids get a good education, help people eat, raise money for nonprofits and charities, raise money to keep kids in school, actively engaged in sport or other. That's what I do. And I don't ask them if they're Democrat or Republican before I do it. So no, I don't believe that garbage. That is what Donald Trump wants you to believe. You have to pick me or you're against me. Anybody that tells me that, and I'm helping you out, young Mexican America, young males in America, young minorities in America, if somebody forces you or makes you make a choice, then you need to take that as they've already made the choice for you. If someone tells you you have to choose me, my way or the highway, you know what? Let me get my Creedence Clearwater Revival song and I'll take the highway, homeboy. No one tells me what I have to do. And that is uniquely American. That is what it is to be American. No one forces me to be with them. No one makes me make a choice. I choose to make my choice. That is as American as it gets. For the record, this mentality, this thought, this belief, it's in my playlist. That's why I want you to listen to my playlist. So I'm really interested in, like I said, I have this issue with, before I digressed a little there, the Pete Hegseth of it all. If you're a real Catholic, now let's put a pin on this one here. If you're a real Catholic, because that's what we're talking about, the religion, the faith, because of the shots against the Pope, etc. All right? If you're a real Catholic, you should not be, and this isn't, again, subjective, it's fact. If you're a real Catholic, you should have major issues with Pete Hegseth getting on a microphone, quoting scripture as justification for killing people. That's a problem. That's a problem if you're a real Catholic. Okay? And if you're a real Catholic and you believe in the faith and you follow the Pope, because if you're a real Catholic, he's our leader of our faith. And if he says it's not good, that, you know, that war is bad, real difficult concept, right? Extremely difficult concept. You're on another level of intellectual difficulty. If the Pope is telling you war is bad, okay, that's hard, really difficult. But if you're a real Catholic, then you need to have some major issues with this freak of a Secretary of Defense, the least qualified, most inept, incompetent Secretary of Defense in our nation's history. That is how it's going to be written, and that's how it's going to be viewed. If you're okay with him attempting to quote scripture and using verses of the Bible as justification for war and killing people, then I submit to you that is not a real Catholic. You're not a real Catholic. And maybe you're like me. I'm not a real Catholic. I'm a heathen. I'm evil, right? I'm just not as good as other Catholics. But I'm real enough that way. I'm real enough Catholic that way to know that killing, not good, killing bad, starting wars for no damn reason is bad. I'm all kinds of real Catholic that way. So if you're real Catholic, and again, let's get specific, the overwhelming majority of Mexicans in America and Mexicans in Mexico and Hispanic people all over the Latin world, using those interchangeably here, are almost uniformly, in large majority, Catholic. They're Catholic, okay? If you don't see the bad and the evil in, then you need to start questioning your faith. And maybe you don't want to be Catholic anymore, then by all means, but don't say you are, and don't use it like this guy as an attempt to build case for killing people. And don't do this with me because it won't work. Well, the Catholic Church did the Crusades. Absolutely, they did. No one's saying, or at least me anyway, here, because that was rationale and justification, go kill people, right? Another faith. Holy war. Holy meaning let's go kill the others that are not like us. Okay? It's history. I know it. I understand it. I acknowledge it. Not saying it's right. Same thing here. Because in a way, they're couching this in a way to use religion as a support and justification for killing people of another faith. Killing people over there because they're not Catholic, because they're not Christian, because they are Muslim of the Islamic faith. So that makes it okay to go kill. Okay? That makes it okay to go kill people. Last I checked, that wasn't Jesus' teaching. That's not Jesus' teaching. It's not there. New Testament, that is not. Okay? So I'm going to leave it there, but this is my point to it. Real Catholics should be having some major issues with what is being said by our president, our vice president, and the Secretary of Defense in using religion now to divide Catholics and people in this country amongst Christians and to justify war and killing of people of another faith, of another region, of another ethnicity. War in general is bad because people die. And I did see a comment. I'm going to have to respond to it, but and not because I think that they're wrong and I'm right, because I really want to understand the rationale behind it. But I do believe that not all wars are unavoidable, but I do believe that most war in general is avoidable. I do believe that. In the case of, for instance, and I brought up the case, and it's an historic piece, and it's obvious and it's objective, I do believe that Pearl Harbor, there was no choice. That something had to be done, that we had to fight back, or we may have been wiped out. And I'm not saying the Japanese Empire would have came over and took all. I'm just saying they bombed us, they killed our people, and if we didn't do anything back, they would have done more to us. In which case, more people die, and you lose everything, or you lose a lot. So I think in some cases, sometimes you have to fight. And that is the veteran in me. That is the infantry soldier in me. And I'm not saying I'm right, but that's what I believe. So real Catholics, you need to get square with your Catholicism, because right now you're being put on the spot. And like everything else that Donald Trump does, he's making you make a decision. I made my decision a long time ago when it came to this guy. I saw it early. I saw it easy. I know what he is. I've seen it. He's just the worst of it. And I made my decision really early. So I've never had to backtrack, backpedal, or rethink or repent on my belief in what he is. I've been uniform and simple about it. And a lot of times, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll kind of wrap up here, but a lot of times, ladies and gentlemen, that is the simplest way. Be clear-eyed, honest, straight. Don't ask too many questions. If it seems like someone saying that a white supremacist is a good person, good people, a Nazi's good people, it's not complicated. That's bad. If a guy says he can walk up to a woman and grab her by the pussy, that's bad. It's not complicated. It's simple. Don't turn away from it and don't make it complex. Don't read into anything more than needs to be read. There's no reading necessary. He says it openly and out loud and gives it right to you. And good people wonder or question, and therein lies the difficulty. Don't question. Don't think on it. It's simple. Grabbing women by the pussy is bad. The person that said that is bad. Neo-Nazis and white supremacists are fine people. That's bad. The person saying it, i.e., bad. That's why I've had no issue with who he is, and what he does. and why I'm uniformly against Donald Trump and Trumpism 100% plus. And if there were another me, they would be 100 on top of that. Let me stop there, be done there. Be square with your faith. Know who you are. And don't allow anyone on this planet, any individual, any one person, any president, politician, whatever, to dictate to you what is the good and the bad as a politician. And taking shots and trying to harm, damage the belief in a pope. A guy that's given his entire life to faith and trying to be good. I don't know to what degree, only God will judge his popes that way. But I know who I'll trust. I am a Catholic. Again, not a perfect one. But this is not complex. This is not, difficult. I'll stick with my faith leader this way. I don't need a president. And for the record, as I finish up here, for the record, the Constitution of this United States, these United States, as I've said before, makes no distinction for any specific religion or faith in this country. It was set up that way purposefully to make sure that this country did not become a theocracy, a government by religion, any religion, so that all of us could live in this country and feel free to practice, preach, live a gospel or a word of God or any God as we choose and as we see fit. So any president or vice president or secretary of defense inserting religion into their conversation and how I'm supposed to see it, feel it, believe in it is fundamentally wrong and therefore unconstitutional, as the word is written in the Constitution. There is no distinction for Catholicism, for a Southern Baptist, for a Muslim, for a Hebrew, for any. So that should be clue number one for you. And as we finish tonight, go to sleep with that thought. Think on it as we go forward. A president does not have a right to dictate to me what my faith is or isn't. And a president, any president, does not have the right to tell me that my faith leader is bad or good. They do not. It is simple and fundamental. They do not. And that should tell you all you need to know about this excuse for what we have in the Oval Office. All right? Bottom line, for all my homies out there, all you young bloods, young Mexican guys raising your families, doing your thing, trying to live, trying to work, trying to eke out a living for your family, your kids, your wife, your girlfriend, whatever. It's not complicated. I know where I'm at. Pope or the traitor? That's not even a debate. That's easy. I'll take the Pope. And twice on Sunday. None but love for you. Watch on the Fridays as always, because there's going to be something coming out squeaking in the middle of the night into the weekend while you guys aren't paying attention. But again, this is the show for the thinking Mexican and thinking American. Pay attention to what they're doing under your nose. Don't let it go unseen. Pay attention. Remove the blinders, remove the blockers, and keep an eye on what they're doing. Be understanding of what they're doing and call it out as you see it. All right? We'll be back next Tuesday. Real quick, Well, no, I'll do it next Tuesday. We have a little bit of surprise coming for you next Thursday. I'll announce that on the Tuesday. Nothing but good stuff for you. Right. Other than that, be careful. Drive safe. Travel safe. Spend time with your loved ones. Do good stuff in your community. Nothing but love for you. Supermax will see you next Tuesday.